For 1,000 years, the Zorathians ruled the stars. Their name alone brought fear. Entire planets surrendered without a fight. Their armor was unbreakable. Their weapons, unstoppable. They were called the Untouchables, the perfect warriors of the galaxy. No army ever stood against them for long. Some tried, some resisted, but in the end, every world fell, crushed under Zorathian boots. Their empire grew larger with each passing century. They laughed at the idea of defeat. For them, war was like a game they could never lose. At the center of their empire sat High Commander Varakun. He had never tasted fear, never seen defeat. On the walls of his throne room, the helmets of fallen alien kings hung like trophies. Today, Varakun prepared for a new conquest. A strange, small blue planet had appeared in their scanners, Earth. "It is primitive," said General Xavier, studying the hologram. "They still use chemical weapons and weak machines. It will be easy." Varakun smiled, showing his sharp silver teeth. "Good. Prepare the fleet. This will be fun." Hundreds of Zorathian warships powered up, engines roaring like monsters waking from sleep. They moved through space like a dark storm, heading straight for Earth. The humans, they thought, would kneel like all others. But as they approached the small blue planet, something strange happened. The humans were not running. Instead, Earth's defenses came alive. Satellites shifted. Hidden bases powered up. Strange new ships, small and fast, rose from the planet's surface. From the bridge of the lead ship, Commander Varakun frowned. "Why are they not afraid?" he asked. General Xavier laughed. "Perhaps they are too foolish to fear us." Varakun nodded slowly. "Perhaps." But deep inside, for the first time in his long life, a small shadow of doubt touched his mind. The fleet entered Earth's orbit. They sent their first warning message to the humans. "Surrender, and we will be merciful. Resist, and be destroyed." The message was broadcast across human communication networks. Everyone on Earth saw it. Everyone heard the threat. But the humans did not surrender. Instead, they sent a message back. Simple, direct. "Welcome to Earth. This is your only warning." In the command center, the Zorathians stared at the screen. Was this a joke? Were these weak creatures trying to threaten the greatest army the galaxy had ever known? Varakun growled. "Begin the invasion. Crush them." Zorathian dropships moved toward Earth, engines burning bright. Soldiers in black armor prepared for battle. The Untouchables would soon show these humans their true power. But Earth had prepared for this moment. As the first dropships entered the atmosphere, strange signals jammed their systems. Shields failed. Communications died. Without warning, small human drones appeared, moving too fast for Zorathian weapons to track. They struck with surgical precision, slicing engines, cutting power cables, disabling weapons. Zorathian ships began to fall from the sky like burning meteors. On the ground, human soldiers waited in hidden bunkers. They did not meet the invaders head-on. Instead, they used hit-and-run tactics, ambushes, traps. Every forest, every city street, every mountain path became a death zone for the Zorathians. Varakun watched in disbelief as reports flooded in. Lost squads, captured officers, destroyed equipment. This is impossible," General Xavier shouted. "How can they do this?" Varakun's hands clenched into fists. The humans were not fighting like the others. They were not following the usual rules. They were using everything, science, tricks, even the environment itself, to fight back. And worse, they were winning. For the first time, Zorathian soldiers hesitated before stepping onto the battlefield. They whispered rumors of ghost soldiers and invisible death. Fear spread like a sickness among them. Back in orbit, the great Zorathian mothership, Dominator, shook as another human attack hit its underside. Explosions tore through its engines. Lights flickered. The ship listed badly, alarms screaming. Varakun roared in anger. Fix it. Regroup. Attack again. But it was too late. Across the stars, for the first time in 1,000 years, the untouchables were bleeding. Down on Earth, a human general watched the burning sky from a hidden bunker. He smiled grimly. "They thought we would bow," he said quietly. "They thought wrong." Above him, flaming Zorathian ships crashed into the oceans and forests, lighting up the night. The legend of the untouchables had begun to crack, and the real battle was just beginning. Smoke filled the skies above Earth. The once proud Zorathian ships now burned like falling stars. The humans had landed their first blow, and it was a blow the galaxy would never forget. Commander Varkan stood on the bridge of the damaged mothership Dominator. His silver armor was scratched and blackened from explosions. His eyes burned with rage. "This is not possible," he shouted. No army had ever stopped the Zorathians before. No planet had ever dared to fight this hard. Yet here they were, being hunted, ambushed, and defeated by a species they had called primitive. Varkan slammed his fist onto the control panel. "Deploy the elite forces. Crush them with all our power." At his command, Zorathian heavy troops, the most dangerous soldiers in the galaxy, were sent to Earth's surface. They landed with thunderous force, their heavy armor shaking the ground. Giant mechs marched forward, their plasma cannons ready to wipe out everything. But the humans were ready. Hidden under forests, inside caves, and in ruined cities, they had set traps. Explosives buried under roads, lasers hidden behind walls, mines floating in the rivers. As soon as the Zorathian mechs moved, the humans struck. One by one, the mighty machines fell. Bombs exploded under their feet. Lasers sliced through their joints. Sticky grenades melted their armor. The battlefield became a graveyard of Zorathian metal. Varkan watched helplessly as his elite forces were destroyed not by bigger guns, but by smarter tactics. "This enemy," General Xaver whispered, "they think like hunters, like predators." Varkan growled, "Then we will become the greater predator." But deep inside, even he was starting to doubt. The humans were not just fighting for survival. They were fighting to win. Far away, in a secret human command bunker, General Marcus Reed gave orders. He was a tall, sharp-eyed man, calm under pressure. "Don't face them head-on," he said. "Make them chase ghosts. Bleed them dry." Human teams moved like shadows. Stealth drones buzzed silently through the skies, marking Zorathian targets. Special forces slipped behind enemy lines, planting explosives and hacking into alien systems. Every night, Zorathian camps were attacked by unseen enemies. Supplies vanished. Officers disappeared. Equipment failed without warning. Fear grew among the invaders. Zorathian soldiers started refusing orders to march into dark forests or abandoned cities. Whispers of cursed lands and invisible death spread like wildfire. Commander Varkan had never seen his army so broken. He ordered all forces to regroup at a large open area outside a ruined human city, a place where he could see the enemy coming. It was a mistake. General Reed had predicted this move. As the Zorathians gathered, human artillery hidden in mountains opened fire. Massive shells rained down on them, tearing the ground apart. Drones swooped in, targeting command posts. Missiles launched from submarines hidden under nearby lakes. The Zorathians had nowhere to hide. Within hours, their carefully planned regrouping turned into a disaster. On board the Dominator, emergency alarms screamed again. "Commander," an officer shouted, "we have lost communication with the entire 2nd Division and the 3rd Division." Varkan barked. "Gone, sir. Destroy or captured." For the first time, Varkan felt cold fear seep into his bones. He stared at the blue planet spinning below him. How could these humans, so small and weak compared to Zorathians, strike with such deadly precision? Then the humans sent another message. It appeared on every Zorathian screen, simple and mocking. "This is your second warning. Leave now or be destroyed. Varkun roared in anger and smashed the screen with his armored fist. Prepare all remaining forces for total assault. He bellowed. We will drown this world in fire. But in the deep corners of his mind, he knew the Zorathians had already lost something far more important than soldiers or ships. They had lost their fearless image. They had lost the belief that they could never be beaten. And once that belief was broken, even legends could fall. Down on Earth, General Reed stood under the stars, watching the burning wreckage of enemy ships fall into the sea. He knew the war was far from over. But he smiled grimly and said to his team, they thought they could break us. Now, it's our turn. The Zorathians were no longer the unstoppable force they once were. Every battle they fought on Earth, they lost. Every day, their empire's mighty warriors were forced to retreat. For the first time in their history, they felt something they had never known before. Fear. Commander Varkun stood at the edge of the Dominator's command deck, staring down at the ruined planet below. The once beautiful Earth was now a battlefield. Zorathian ships burned in its skies. Alien soldiers limped back to their ships, injured and demoralized. Varkun's eyes burned with anger. This could not be happening. He was a Zorathian. He was the fearsome conqueror of worlds. How could these humans, so weak and fragile, cause so much damage? Where did we go wrong? General Xaver asked, his voice quiet with disbelief. Varkun clenched his fists. We underestimated them. We thought they were like all the other races we crushed. But they are different. They think like us. They fight like us. Xaver's eyes narrowed. They are smart, too smart, and they never stop adapting. Varkun turned sharply to face him. They know our weaknesses. They know us better than we know them. He paused, staring into the void of space, his mind racing. We must learn from them. We must adapt or we will lose. The Zorathians had been invincible because they had never had to learn how to fear. Now, the humans were teaching them that lesson the hard way. On Earth, General Marcus Reed looked out over the battlefield. The humans had pushed the Zorathians back again, but Reed knew this victory was temporary. The enemy would come again, stronger, smarter, and more determined. He turned to his staff. We need to keep them guessing. We can't let them find our weaknesses. Every time we fight, they learn. We have to be faster, smarter, and unpredictable. His team nodded, understanding the importance of staying ahead. They couldn't afford to let the Zorathians adapt. The fight for Earth wasn't just a battle of armies anymore. It was a battle of minds. Meanwhile, the Zorathian High Command was in chaos. I want every last piece of data on human tactics, Varkun ordered. Study their movements, their communications, find out how they think. We will break them with their own methods. Xaver was already in the process of gathering every piece of human information they could find. They were learning about the humans' guerrilla tactics, their use of terrain, their unpredictable strikes. They were starting to understand how the humans fought, and how they adapted so quickly. One thing is clear, Xaver said, looking over the data. The humans don't fight like anyone else. They don't play by the rules. Varkun's face grew dark. They don't play by the rules because they don't have rules. They're wild. That's what makes them dangerous. Back on Earth, the Zorathians launched another major assault. They had regrouped and gathered their strength, ready to take the planet by force. Their ships filled the sky, and their soldiers were once again marching toward the capital city. But this time, the humans were ready. General Reed had anticipated their every move. Zorathian forces entered the city, but the streets were eerily quiet. No human soldiers appeared. No defenses activated. For a moment, the Zorathians thought they had won, that the humans had finally given up. Then the ground shook. Suddenly, the sky lit up as human drones swarmed from hidden locations. Explosives went off in every direction. Energy shields shimmered as Zorathian weapons failed to penetrate. Human forces launched from underground bunkers, attacking from every direction. The Zorathians were trapped. "We cannot fight like this," one of the Zorathian commanders screamed. "We are surrounded." The humans were everywhere and nowhere. They seemed to be everywhere at once, but also invisible. They used the terrain to their advantage, hiding in the shadows, striking from impossible angles. "Fall back," Varkun ordered. "Retreat to the ships. We need to regroup." But it was too late. Zorathian troops scattered in all directions, some running toward the ships, others getting lost in the burning ruins of the city. For the first time in history, Zorathian soldiers were fleeing, not because they were outnumbered, but because they were outsmarted. As the Zorathian forces retreated into space, Varkun could barely contain his fury. He had led them into battle, and they had lost again. He had seen fear in the eyes of his soldiers, fear he had never thought possible. This is not how it's supposed to be," Varkun shouted. Xaver stood beside him, watching the human forces from afar. "They have learned how to fight us. They have learned how to make us fear." Varkun clenched his fists. "Then we will learn to fight them in ways they never expected. We will adapt faster than they can." The war was far from over. But now, the Zorathians had something to fear, and that fear would shape the next stage of the war. Down on Earth, General Reed watched as the last Zorathian ship flowed into space. He knew the enemy would return, stronger and smarter. But for now, the humans had won, and that was enough. The Zorathians had learned fear. The Zorathian Empire had never faced an enemy like the humans. For the first time, they were losing a war that had seemed impossible to lose. High Commander Varkun paced across the command deck of the Dominator, the once mighty flagship of the Zorathian fleet. The ship was badly damaged. His warriors, the pride of the galaxy, were battered and broken. Zorathian forces were retreating from Earth, and the once proud empire was trembling. "We cannot continue like this," Varkun growled. His voice was sharp, filled with frustration. "We must find a way to end this." General Xaver stood silently beside him, staring at the images of Earth's burning cities displayed on the screen. "They are relentless," Xaver said. "Every time we think we've won, they come back with something new. Some new trick, some new weapon. They keep us guessing." Varkun turned toward him, his eyes cold with determination. "You're right. The humans fight differently. We need to adapt. Again. We need something they can't predict. Something they haven't seen yet." Xaver's eyes flickered with interest. "What do you suggest?" Varkun smiled grimly. "We create something they can't fight. Something invisible. Something unstoppable." Back on Earth, General Marcus Reed knew the Zorathians wouldn't stay down for long. The war was not over. The invaders had been pushed back, but they would return, stronger and more ruthless. Reed gathered his best officers and military advisors in a secret underground bunker. "We've had some victories, but we've only seen the tip of the Zorathian war machine," Reed said, his voice steady. "They are learning, and they are planning. We need to be ready for their next move." Reed paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "We need to fight smarter. We need to stay one step ahead." One of the officers raised his hand. "General, what about their new tactics? They've been using new strategies. Ambushes, faster attacks. How do we counter that?" Reed's eyes narrowed as he thought. "We need to turn their own methods against them." The solution came to him like a spark. "The Phantom Division," he said suddenly. The room went silent. "Phantom Division," an officer repeated. "Are you suggesting?" Reed nodded. "Yes. We train a special unit, a group of soldiers who will blend into the environment, strike from the shadows, and disappear before the enemy even knows they were there. We'll make them fear the unknown." The officers exchanged uncertain glances, but Reed's confidence was infectious. "We'll become the ghosts they can't fight, the soldiers they can't see, The Phantom Division will make them question every step they take. Meanwhile, the Zorathians were preparing their own secret weapon. After losing so many battles, Varkan knew they needed something more than brute force. "We will create the ultimate division," he said, his voice dark with intent. "Something invisible, a force so deadly that the humans won't even know it's coming." Savor's eyes glinted with interest. "You mean the Shadow Division?" Varkan nodded. "Yes, a division made up of our best and most silent warriors. They will infiltrate human cities, sabotage their defenses, and strike before they even know it. We will bring the fight to their doorstep, and they will have nowhere to hide." Back on Earth, the Phantom Division began its training. These soldiers weren't like regular infantry. They were the best of the best, chosen for their ability to remain unseen and unheard. They were taught to move like shadows, blending into their surroundings, using the terrain to their advantage. Their weapons were silent, their movements swift and deadly. Reed watched as they trained in the forests, moving through the trees like whispers on the wind. "These soldiers will be our answer to the Zorathian Shadow Division," he said to his officers. "They will become ghosts. They will make the Zorathians afraid to move." The Zorathians, on the other hand, had begun their own training for the Shadow Division. They were creating a force unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Silent warriors, capable of infiltrating human bases and spreading chaos without ever being seen. Varkan stood in the control room, watching as the first members of the Shadow Division were trained. They moved with the precision of death itself, slipping in and out of the shadows, their weapons quick and efficient. "They will be unstoppable," Varkan said, his voice cold. "They will show the humans what true fear is." The war between the Zorathians and humans had entered a new phase. It was no longer just about armies clashing. It was no longer just about strength. Now, it was about shadows. The Zorathians had their Shadow Division, and the humans had their Phantom Division. Both sides were preparing to unleash their secret forces in a battle that would determine the fate of Earth. Reed looked out over the battlefield from his command post. "Let them come," he said quietly, his eyes filled with determination. "Let them bring their shadows. We'll show them what happens when you fight against ghosts." The stage was set. The two invisible armies were about to collide. The war was about to become even more dangerous, and the first strike of the Phantom Division was just about to be launched. The battlefield had changed. It was no longer a place for brute force and open combat. It was a place where shadows moved, unseen and deadly. The war between the Zorathians and humans had become a battle of ghosts. General Marcus Reed stood at the command center, his face grim. He had seen the Zorathian Shadow Division in action. They were terrifying. But the humans had their own secret weapon, the Phantom Division. They were ready. Now, it was time to put their plan into motion. "The first strike will be tonight," Reed said, his voice calm but full of purpose. "We'll hit them where they least expect it, their command posts, their supply routes. We'll make them fear the dark." His officers nodded, their faces serious. The Phantom Division was already in place, hidden in the shadows. They were ready to strike at the heart of the Zorathian forces. Meanwhile, on the Zorathian mothership Dominator, Commander Varkan was preparing his own forces. He had seen the humans' methods. They were quick, silent, and efficient. But the Shadow Division would be even better. "We cannot allow the humans to surprise us again," Varkan said, pacing back and forth. "We will strike first. We will attack their hidden bases, destroy their weapons before they can use them." His eyes burned with the fire of a warrior who would never admit defeat. "We will not be the prey. We will be the hunters." Savor, his second-in-command, nodded. "Understood, Commander. The Shadow Division is ready. They will eliminate every human threat before it even has a chance to grow." Varkan's expression was cold and determined. "Good. We'll bring the fight to their doorstep. The humans will learn that they are nothing compared to the might of the Zorathian Empire." Back on Earth, the Phantom Division was already in position. They were scattered across the landscape, hidden in forests, abandoned buildings, and underground tunnels. They were the unseen force that would strike fear into the hearts of the Zorathians. Sergeant Alina, one of the top leaders of the Phantom Division, crouched behind a rock, her eyes scanning the night. The darkness felt like a cloak around her, making her almost invisible. She could hear the distant hum of Zorathian vehicles, but she knew they had no idea she was there. "Team, move out," Alina whispered into her communicator. "Take out the supply lines, disable their equipment. We don't engage unless we have to." Her team moved like shadows, silently advancing toward their targets. There were no words, only the soft sounds of their boots on the dirt. Their mission was clear: strike hard, strike fast, and disappear before the enemy even realized what had happened. The Zorathians, meanwhile, were closing in on the humans' main base. They had located the hidden stronghold, and their shadow division was already moving in to eliminate any resistance. "Prepare for the assault," Varkun ordered. "The humans will not escape this time." But what Varkun didn't know was that the humans were already one step ahead. Alina's Phantom Division had already infiltrated their ranks, silently cutting off the Zorathians' communication lines, planting explosives, and sabotaging their equipment. At the heart of the Zorathian assault, Commander Xaver was leading his forces when an explosion shook the ground beneath him. The Zorathian troops scattered, trying to find cover. "Ambush," Xaver shouted. "Find them. Don't let them escape." But the humans had already vanished into the night, their presence erased as quickly as it had appeared. Alina's voice came through the radio. "We've taken out their communications and most of their weapons. They won't be able to call for reinforcements. Keep pushing." Reed's voice crackled through the radio. "Excellent work, Sergeant. Now pull back. The next phase of the plan begins." The Zorathians were thrown into chaos. They couldn't locate the humans, couldn't track their movements. It was as if the humans were everywhere and nowhere at once. "How are they doing this?" Xaver demanded, his voice rising with frustration. "We can't find them. Every time we move, they strike." Varkun's fists clenched. "This is no longer a battle. This is a hunt, and we are the prey." But the humans were not content to remain hidden forever. Alina had given her team the signal. It was time to escalate the war. They had learned all they needed to know about the Zorathians' tactics. Now, they would strike the final blow. The Phantom Division moved into the heart of the Zorathian camp, silently planting explosives and setting traps. Zorathian officers were ambushed in their command centers. Troops were lured into deadly traps, their movements predicted and countered at every turn. The Zorathians' confidence had shattered. Varkun had underestimated the humans. They weren't just fighting with strength, they were fighting with intelligence, with strategy. And it was tearing the Zorathians apart. Back on Earth, General Reed watched as the Zorathian forces began to retreat, their morale broken. The Phantom Division had done its job. The Shadow Division had been defeated, not by superior strength, but by the humans' ability to adapt, to think, and to act faster than their enemies. "We've won this round," Reed said, a grim smile on his face. "But the war isn't over. The Zorathians will come again, and next time, we'll be ready." But for now, Earth had won victory, and that victory had come not from armies, but from shadows. The Zorathian Empire was on the edge of collapse. Earth had dealt them a blow they could not ignore. For the first time in centuries, the mighty invaders were forced to retreat, humiliated and broken. But Commander Varkun was not ready to give up. He knew that the humans' victory was only temporary. The real battle was yet to come. On the Dominator, Varkun stared at the stars, his mind swirling with thoughts of vengeance. "I will not let them defeat us," he whispered to himself. "I will not let Earth stand. We will return, and this time, we will not fail." Xaver, standing beside him, observed the commander quietly. "Sir, we've lost many ships and soldiers. The humans are adapting faster than we anticipated." Varkun's eyes narrowed. Then we will adapt faster. We will learn from this defeat, and when we strike again, they will never see us coming. Back on Earth, General Marcus Reed knew the victory would not last. The Zorathians were regrouping, and he could feel it in the air. The next battle would decide everything. It would be the final stand. "We've taken the upper hand for now," Reed said to his officers, his voice steady but grave. "But we can't get complacent. The Zorathians are a proud, powerful empire. If they return with everything they have, we might not survive." His team nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "We need to fortify our defenses. We need to be ready for whatever they throw at us." Varkun was preparing for the final assault. This time, he had a plan that the humans wouldn't expect. "We will use the element of surprise," he said coldly, addressing his officers. "We'll strike their defenses before they have time to react. The humans will not be ready for this." Savor stepped forward, holding a data pad with updated intelligence. "They have been strengthening their forces, but their biggest weakness is their reliance on technology. If we can disrupt their communication systems and blind their sensors, they will be vulnerable." Varkun nodded, a fierce grin spreading across his face. "Perfect. We will use the Shadow Division once again. This time, we will disable their technology, and then we strike where it hurts." On Earth, the humans were preparing for the worst. General Reed knew the Zorathians would return with even greater strength. "This is it," he said to his commanders. "This is the final stand. If we lose this fight, we lose everything." The soldiers in the command center were ready. They had trained for this moment. They had studied every Zorathian tactic, every strategy, and now they knew what to expect. But Reed knew one thing that they could never prepare for: the unknown. "We will fight. We will give everything we have," Reed said. "Tonight, we either win or lose everything." As night fell, both sides moved into position. The Zorathians' fleet, hidden in the dark side of the moon, was preparing for the attack. The humans were spread out across Earth's surface, ready to defend every major city and military base. Varkun gave the signal to attack. The Shadow Division, moving like whispers in the dark, began their strike. They disabled human communication networks, rendering their defensive systems useless. The humans were blind, unable to coordinate their forces. Reed's heart sank as he saw the first signs of the Zorathian assault. The skies above the cities lit up with explosions as Zorathian ships unleashed their full force. The ground trembled as Zorathian troops began to invade, their weapons cutting through human defenses. But the humans were not helpless. They fought back fiercely, using every weapon, every tactic they had learned from the Zorathians. The Phantom Division, although weakened, still struck from the shadows, disrupting Zorathian plans at every turn. The battle was fierce and chaotic. Zorathian ships moved in a deadly swarm, bombarding human cities and military installations. But every time they thought they had won a victory, human forces emerged from the darkness, attacking from unexpected angles. Varkun watched as his troops engaged in combat, but something was different. The humans were not running. They were fighting harder than ever, using tactics he had never seen before. They were unpredictable. "They've learned too much," Varkun muttered. "We cannot let them win. We will break them now." General Reed was in the heart of the battle. He could see the Zorathian forces advancing, but he refused to back down. "This is our world," he shouted, rallying his troops. "We will fight for Earth. We will not let them take it." His voice, filled with conviction, spread through the ranks of his soldiers. The humans fought with everything they had, determined not to let the Zorathians destroy their home. As the battle raged on, both sides suffered heavy losses. The Zorathians had the advantage of numbers and advanced technology, but the humans had something the Zorathians didn't: heart. They fought not for conquest, but for survival. For their families, for their planet. Varkun, seeing his forces faltering, made a desperate decision. He ordered his fleet to deploy everything they had, pushing their ships and soldiers to the limit. But even then, it wasn't enough. The Zorathians were starting to lose ground. Human forces, though battered, fought with a fire that Varkan couldn't extinguish. As dawn broke over the battlefield, the Zorathian forces began to retreat. The humans had done it. They had defeated the Invincible. Reed stood on the front lines, watching as the Zorathian ships fled back into space. He was exhausted, but there was a sense of relief in the air. "We won," he said quietly. "But the war is far from over." The battle for Earth had ended. The Zorathian Empire, once so proud and powerful, was now retreating, humiliated by the resilience of the human race. The war was over, but its impact would be felt for generations. General Marcus Reed stood on the balcony of the command center, staring out at the world he had fought to protect. The cities were damaged, the landscape scarred by years of destruction. But humanity had endured. Humanity had won. "It's over," Sergeant Alina said, standing beside Reed. She had been with the Phantom Division through every step of the war, and now she looked out at the world in disbelief. "We actually did it." Reed nodded, his face tired but filled with determination. "It's over for now, Alina. But the Zorathians won't stay down forever. They'll regroup. They'll find a way to strike again. We need to prepare for the future." Back in the vast reaches of space, Commander Varkan stood before the remains of the Zorathian fleet. The once mighty ships, now battered and broken, drifted in the darkness. Varkan's pride had been shattered. The humans had proven themselves worthy adversaries, something he had never imagined possible. Xavier, standing beside him, said, "We have failed, Commander. We underestimated them." Varkan's eyes burned with fury, but there was something else there too, a glimmer of respect. "They'd fought like we've never seen before," he said quietly. "We will learn from this defeat. The humans are strong, stronger than we thought, but they have weaknesses, and we will exploit them." Xavier's gaze hardened. "What will we do now, Commander?" Varkan turned, his voice low and dangerous. "We will regroup. We will rebuild, and we will return to Earth. This isn't over, not by a long shot." On Earth, the leaders of the human world were meeting. It had been days since the last Zorathian ship had retreated, but the atmosphere was heavy. The war might have been won, but peace was still far from certain. Reed stood at the head of the table, looking around at the representatives from every corner of the globe. "We've defeated the Zorathians for now, but we must understand that they will not forget this. We've seen their power, their resolve. We cannot allow ourselves to become complacent." A murmur went around the room. Some leaders wanted to celebrate, to enjoy their victory, but Reed knew better. "The war isn't over," he said, his voice sharp. "We need to rebuild our forces. We need to unite as one, because the Zorathians will return, and we have to be ready." Alina sat quietly in her room, her thoughts drifting back to the battles. The war had changed her. It had changed everyone. She thought about the sacrifices, the lives lost, and the people she had fought beside. But the question lingered in her mind. What now? The Zorathians were gone. For now. But Earth was forever changed. The technology they had stolen, the knowledge they had gained, all of it had altered the course of human history. Alina stood up, her resolve hardening. "I'll do whatever it takes," she muttered to herself. "We can't stop here. We need to prepare for whatever comes next." Reed returned to his private quarters, his mind racing with plans. He knew that humanity had won the battle, but the war was far from over. The Zorathians had learned too much. They had seen the strength of the human spirit, and they would come back with everything they had. "We will be ready," Reed said to himself, clenching his fists. "We will protect our world. We won't let them take it again." Across the galaxy, the Zorathian Empire was already planning its next move. Varkan had begun to rebuild, slowly but surely. The loss of Earth had shaken them to their core, but the fire of revenge burned brighter than ever. The Zorathians were strong. They were patient. "We will return," Varkan said, his voice filled with determination. "And this time, we will not fail." On Earth, the humans had learned valuable lessons from the war. They had seen how quickly their world could be taken from them. But they had also seen the power of unity, of standing together in the face of overwhelming odds. Reed looked out at the horizon, a sense of quiet confidence settling over him. The Earth had survived the invasion, and now it would thrive again. "We will rebuild," he said, his voice soft. "But this time, we'll be ready for whatever comes next." The war may have ended, but a new era had begun. Humanity had faced the greatest threat it had ever known, and they had won. But the Zorathians were still out there, plotting, waiting, preparing for the day when they would return. And when that day came, the humans would be ready. For now, Earth was safe, but the future remained uncertain.